Commander Jake Sullivan stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching the stars through the main view screen. The ship moved quietly through space, toward the meeting point. This was the most important day in human history. After 100 years of exploring space, humanity was finally going to meet aliens. "Sir, we're getting close to the station," said Tony Brooks from his communication station. His voice shook a little. Everyone on the ship felt nervous about this meeting. "Good work, Tony. Dr. Martinez, are you ready for this?" Jake asked the woman sitting at the science station. Dr. Lisa Martinez looked up from her computer. She had spent years studying what alien life might look like. Now, she would finally see real aliens. "I'm as ready as anyone can be for something like this," she said. The Kepler 7 station appeared on the screen. It was a huge metal structure floating in empty space. The station was built just for this meeting. Half of it was made for humans, and half was made for the aliens who called themselves the Vorthok. "Sir, we're getting a message from the station," Tony said. "They want us to dock at Bay 7. Take us in," Jake ordered. Yeah. He felt his heart beating fast. Everything that happened today would change the future of humanity. The Defiant moved slowly toward the station. Through the windows, Jake could see other human ships already docked. The Earth government had sent their best diplomats for this meeting. But Jake's ship carried the most important person of all. Ambassador Helen Carter was sleeping in her quarters, preparing for the biggest negotiation in human history. "Commander, look at that," Lisa said, pointing at the screen. A massive alien ship was approaching the station from the other side. It was unlike anything humans had ever built. The ship was long and dark, with strange curves and edges. Green lights pulsed along its hull. "That must be them," Jake said quietly. The Vorthok. The alien ship docked on the other side of the station. Jake watched it through the cameras. Ship was at least twice the size of the Defiant. Its hull looked like it was made of some kind of black metal that seemed to absorb light. "Sir, Ambassador Carter is awake and ready to go," said Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, who had just entered the bridge. "Thank you, Amy. Tell the ambassador we'll be ready to transport to the station in 10 minutes. Jake had read all the reports about the Vorthok. They'd contacted Earth 6 months ago with a simple message. They wanted to meet. They said they were from a large empire that controlled many star systems. They claimed to be peaceful and wanted to welcome humanity to the galaxy. But something felt wrong to Jake. In all his years as a military officer, he had learned to trust his instincts. The Vorthok message was too simple, too easy. Why would a powerful alien empire want to meet with humans? Earth only had a few colonies and a small fleet of ships. "Commander, we're ready to go," Ambassador Carter said as she walked onto the bridge. She was a tall woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She had spent her whole life working for peace between different groups of people. Now she had to make peace with aliens. "Ambassador, I hope you know what you're doing," Jake said. "Something doesn't feel right about this." "I understand your concerns, Commander, but this is our chance to join the galactic community. We can't let fear stop us from taking this step." Jake nodded, but his worry remained. "I'll be right beside you the whole time. If anything goes wrong, we'll get you out of there." The group moved to the transport room. Jake, Ambassador Carter, Dr. Martinez, and Tony Brooks stepped onto the transport pad. The machine hummed to life, and suddenly they were standing in a corridor on Kepler 7 station. The station was quiet except for the sound of air moving through the walls. Human and alien engineers had worked together to build this place, but Jake noticed that the two halves felt very different. The human side was bright and clean. The alien side was darker, with strange symbols on the walls. "This way to the meeting room," said a station worker. He led them through several corridors to a large room in the center of the station. The room was split down the middle. One side had human chairs and tables. The other side had alien furniture. That looked uncomfortable and strange. Jake and his team sat down on the human side. They waited for several minutes before the aliens arrived. When the doors opened, Jake felt his breath catch in his throat. The Vorthok were reptiles that walked on 2 legs. They were taller than humans, with long arms and sharp claws. Skin was dark green and covered in small scales. Their eyes were yellow and seemed to glow in the dim light. They wore no clothing, but had metal devices attached to their bodies. The lead alien stepped forward.
Oh.
When it spoke, its voice was deep and harsh. I am Zethkar, speaker for the Vorthok Empire. You are the humans from the small world called Earth. Ambassador Carter stood up. I am Ambassador Helen Carter. We're honored to meet you and learn about your empire. Your honor is not important, Zethkar said. We are here to give you information about how the galaxy works. You humans have been expanding into space without permission. This cannot continue. Jake felt his muscles tense. This was not how he expected the meeting to start. I'm sorry, Ambassador, Carter said carefully. We didn't know we needed permission. We thought space was free for everyone to explore. Zethkar made a sound that might have been laughter, but it was cold and frightening. Nothing is free. The galaxy belongs to those who are strong enough to control it. The Vorthok Empire has ruled this part of space for 1,000 years. We decide who can live here and who cannot. What exactly are you saying? Ambassador Carter asked. We are saying that humanity has two choices. You can join our empire as a subject species. We will follow our laws and pay tribute to us. Or you can refuse and be destroyed. The room became very quiet. Jake could hear his own heartbeat. Looked at Dr. Martinez and Tony. Both of them looked shocked and scared. You're threatening us, Ambassador Carter said. We came here in peace. Peace is what we decided, as Zethkar replied. We've studied your species. You are weak. Your technology is primitive. Your ships are slow. Your weapons are simple. You cannot fight us. You're not looking for a fight, Ambassador Carter said. Surely we can find a way to work together. There is no working together. There is only ruling and being ruled. We rule, you will be ruled. Jake stood up slowly. And if we refuse, Zethkar turned his yellow eyes toward Jake, then you will all die. Every human world will burn. Every human ship will be destroyed. Your species will be erased from the galaxy. You can't be serious, Dr. Martinez said. We are always serious about such things, Zethkar said. We have destroyed 12 species that refuse to join us. Humanity will be the 13th if you choose poorly. Ambassador Carter looked at Jake. He could see the fear in her eyes, but also determination. We need time to consider your offer. You have 1 day, Zethkar said. Tomorrow we will return for your answer. Choose wisely. The aliens left the room as quickly as they had arrived. Jake and his team sat in silence for several minutes. Have to contact Earth immediately, Ambassador Carter said. I don't think 1 day is enough time, Tony said. It doesn't matter, Jake said quietly. They're not going to wait for our answer. As if to prove his point, alarms began ringing throughout the station. Tony pressed his hand to his earpiece. Commander, I'm getting emergency signals from the SE. Outer colonies. New Montana is under attack. Jake closed his eyes. The war had already begun. On the screens around the room, they could see the Vorthok ships moving away from the station. Green energy weapons fired from their hulls, and in the distance, human ships exploded in bright flashes of light. Back to the Defiant now, Jake ordered. We need to warn Earth. But Jake knew it was already too late. The aliens had started the war. Now humanity would have to find a way to finish it. 6 months had passed since the Vorthok first attacked. The war was going badly for humanity. Every day brought news of another defeat, another world lost to the alien invaders. Colonel Ben Carter stood in the command center on Harrison's Point, watching the battle displays with growing despair. The industrial world was humanity's last major manufacturing center outside of Earth. If it fell, human war effort would collapse completely. Sir, we've lost contact with the 3rd Defense Line, reported Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, her fighter. The squadron had been fighting non-stop for 3 days. Dark circles under her eyes showed how tired she was. How many ships do we have left? Ben asked. 17 fighters and 5 frigates, Amy replied. The Vorthok have at least 40 ships in their attack fleet. Ben looked at the tactical display. Red dots representing enemy ships moved steadily toward the blue dots of human forces. The red dots outnumbered the blue ones by more than 2-1. Worse, the Vorthok ships were much stronger than human vessels. "Sir, incoming transmission from Admiral Thompson," said Communications Officer Tony Brooks. The same Tony who had been at the first meeting with the aliens now served on the front lines. "Put her through," Ben ordered. Admiral Grace Thompson's face appeared on the main screen. She looked older than she had 6 months ago. The stress of losing battle after battle had aged her quickly. "Colonel Carter, what's your status?" she asked. "We're holding for now, Admiral, but we won't last much longer. The Vorthok shields are stopping everything we throw at them." "I understand. We're doing everything we can to send reinforcements." Ben knew that was not true. There were no more reinforcements to send. The human fleet was scattered across dozens of worlds, all fighting hopeless battles against superior alien forces. "Admiral, we need to start the evacuation," Ben said. "We can't save Harrison's Point." Admiral Thompson was quiet for a moment. "Begin evacuation procedures. Save as many people as you can." The transmission ended. Ben turned to his staff. "Heard the Admiral. Start moving civilians to the transport ships." Outside the command center, the sky was filled with explosions. Vorthok plasma cannons fired green beams that cut through human ships like knives through paper. The alien energy shields glowed blue as human missiles bounced off them harmlessly. Amy Rodriguez ran into the command center. "Sir, the Vorthok are targeting the civilian transports. They're shooting at refugee ships." Ben felt anger rise in his chest. "Those are non-combatants. They're breaking the rules of war." "The Vorthok don't seem to care about rules," Amy said. Through the window, Ben could see a transport ship exploding in the distance. Thousands of innocent people died in that single flash of light. Men, women, and children who had never hurt anyone were murdered by alien weapons. "Get me a direct link to all fighter squadrons," Ben ordered. "Sir, what are you planning?" Amy asked. "We're going to buy time for the evacuation, even if it kills us." Amy nodded. She understood. They were all going to die today, but maybe they could save some civilians first. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Peter Hayes worked frantically in his underground laboratory. The facility was hidden deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, where it would be safe from alien attack. With him were physicist Dr. Claire Johnson and engineer Lieutenant Commander Rick Stone. "Have you found anything yet?" Rick asked. He was tired and frustrated. They had been studying captured Vorthok technology for months, with little progress. "Maybe," Peter said, looking at his computer screen. "The alien shields work on quantum frequencies. They create a field that redirects energy away from the ship. Can we break through them?" Claire asked. "Possibly. If we can disrupt the quantum field, the shields should collapse. But it would require getting very close to the alien ships." Rick looked at the data. "How close?" "Less than 1,000 meters. Any human ship that gets that close to a Vorthok vessel would be destroyed in seconds." Claire frowned. "So we can break their shields, but only if we're willing to sacrifice our ships to do it." "That's about right," Peter said sadly. Back at Harrison's Point, the battle was reaching its end. Most of the human ships had been destroyed. Amy Rodriguez flew her fighter through clouds of debris that used to be her friends and fellow pilots. "Blue Leader, this is Blue 7. "I'm hit bad," came a voice over the radio. "Blue 7, get back to the carrier," Amy replied. "Negative, Blue Leader. My engines are gone. I'm going to ram the nearest Vorthok ship." Amy watched as Blue 7's fighter accelerated toward a Vorthok cruiser. The small human ship struck the alien vessel's shields and exploded. The shields flickered but held. "All remaining fighters, fall back to the evacuation zone," Amy ordered. "Protect the transports." But there were only 3 fighters left, including Amy's own ship. They could not protect much of anything. On the ground, Ben Carter supervised the loading of the last transport ship. Families rushed up the boarding ramps, carrying whatever they could save from their homes. Children cried as they were separated from friends they would never see again. "Colonel, we need to go now," said his aide. "The Vorthok ground forces are only 10 kilometers away." Ben looked at the thousands of people still waiting to board ships. "We can't leave them, sir. If we don't leave now, everyone dies. Including the people already on the ships." Ben knew the man was right, gave the order to launch the transports. As the ships lifted off, Vorthok fighters dove down from the sky. Their green plasma cannons fired at the slow-moving transports. One ship exploded immediately. Another was hit and crashed back to the ground. Amy Rodriguez and her 2 remaining fighters tried to protect the transports, but they were heavily outnumbered. Amy's ship was hit by enemy fire, her cockpit filled with smoke and sparks. "Blue leader is going down," she reported over the radio. "Tell Earth we tried." Amy's fighter crashed into the planet's surface. She was one of the last pilots to die. Defending Harrison's Point, Ben Carter and his staff boarded the final transport ship. As they lifted off, he looked down at the burning planet below. The Vorthok had won another victory. Humanity had lost another world. The transport ship limped through space toward Earth. Other refugee ships joined them, forming a sad convoy of survivors. Out of 2 million people who had lived on Harrison's Point, only about 300,000 escaped. On Earth, Admiral Thompson received the reports from Harrison's Point. Another defeat. Another world lost. The Vorthok fleet was now only 2 star systems away from Earth itself. "Admiral, we're getting reports from all fronts," said her aide. "The aliens are pushing toward Earth from 3 directions. Our forces can't stop them." Admiral Thompson looked at the strategic map. Red arrows showed Vorthok forces moving toward Earth from multiple directions. Blue arrows showed human forces retreating everywhere. "How long do we have?" she asked. "At their current rate of advance, the Vorthok will reach Earth in 2 weeks. Admiral Thompson closed her eyes. 2 weeks to prepare for the final battle. 2 weeks to save humanity's homeworld. "Send a message to all human colonies and ships," she ordered. "Tell them to fall back to Earth. We're going to make our last stand here." "What about the outer colonies?" the aide asked. "We can't protect them anymore. Everyone who can fight needs to be here when the Vorthok arrive." As the orders went out, human ships across the galaxy began their retreat toward Earth. It was the darkest hour in human history. The aliens had conquered 12 human worlds in 6 months. Their technology was superior. Their ships were stronger. Their weapons were more powerful. But Admiral Thompson knew something the Vorthok did not understand. Humans were at their most dangerous when they had nothing left to lose. And now, humanity had nothing left to lose except Earth itself. The final battle would be fought in humanity's home system. Win or lose, it would end there in his laboratory. Dr. Peter Hayes worked even harder to find a way to break the Vorthok shields. He knew that without a breakthrough, the defense of Earth would be hopeless. But maybe, just maybe, human ingenuity could find a way to level the playing field. Time was running out. The Vorthok were coming, and humanity was running out of places to run. The Vorthok fleet approached Earth like a dark cloud. Admiral Grace Thompson stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the enemy ships on the display screen. There were more than 200 alien vessels heading toward humanity's homeworld. "Ma'am, Dr. Hayes is ready to report," said her communications officer. "Put him through," Admiral Thompson ordered. Dr. Peter Hayes appeared on the screen. He looked tired but excited. "Admiral, we've done it. We found a way to break through the Vorthok shields." "How?" Admiral Thompson asked. "We've built quantum disruptor weapons. They can collapse the alien shield systems. But there's a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The weapons only work at very close range. Ship would have to get within 800 meters of a Vorthok vessel to use them effectively." Admiral Thompson understood immediately. It's suicide range. "Any ship that gets that close will be destroyed." "Yes, ma'am." "But if the ship can fire the disruptor before being destroyed, it will leave the alien vessel defenseless against our regular weapons." Admiral Thompson thought about this. Human pilots would have to fly suicide missions to make the weapons work. It was a terrible choice, but it might be humanity's only hope. "How many disruptors do we have?" she asked. "We've managed to build 50 units. We can install them on fighters or small frigates." "Do it. Install them on our fastest ships." Find me pilots who understand what they're volunteering for. Lieutenant Commander Rick Stone worked frantically in the ship modification bay. He and Chief Engineer Maria Santos had been working for 3 days straight to install the quantum disruptors on human ships. "How many more do we need to finish?" Maria asked, wiping sweat from her face. 23, Rick replied. "But we're running out of time. The Vorthok will be here in 6 hours. "Then we better work faster," Maria said. The first test of the new weapons came sooner than expected. A Vorthok patrol group was detected near Jupiter. Captain Alan Foster volunteered to lead the first attack with the quantum disruptors. "Remember, you have to get close enough to touch them," Admiral Thompson told him over the radio. "The disruptors won't work at normal combat range." "Understood, Admiral. We'll make it count." Captain Foster led 12 fighters toward the alien patrol. The Vorthok ships were spread out near Jupiter's moons, apparently studying the human defenses. "All fighters, stay in formation until we're close," Foster ordered, "then break and attack." Individual targets. The human fighters approached the alien ships at maximum speed. The Vorthok detected them and began firing their plasma cannons. Green beams of energy lanced through space, but the human pilots flew erratic patterns to avoid being hit. "Now," Foster shouted, "break and attack." The fighters split apart and dove toward different Vorthok ships. Foster aimed his fighter at the largest alien vessel. Plasma fire erupted around him as he closed the distance. His fighter's hull began to glow from the heat of near-miss shots. Warning alarms screamed in his cockpit. At 600 meters from the alien ship, his shields failed completely. 100 meters, he said into his radio. 400. 300. At 200 meters, Foster's fighter was hit by a plasma beam. The rear section exploded, but the ship kept flying forward. "Firing disruptor now," Foster shouted. A blue beam shot from his fighter and hit the Vorthok ship. The alien shields flickered and disappeared. For the first time in the war, a Vorthok vessel was completely defenseless. "Target is open," Foster called out. "Hit it now." The other human fighters fired their missiles at the unshielded alien ship. The missiles struck the hull and exploded. The Vorthok vessel broke apart in a brilliant flash of light, but Captain Foster did not live to see the victory. His damaged fighter crashed into Jupiter's atmosphere seconds after firing the disruptor. Of the 12 fighters that started the attack, only Foster and 2 others successfully used their disruptors. 3 Vorthok ships were destroyed, but 9 human pilots died in the process. "It works," Admiral Thompson said grimly, "but the cost is terrible." On the conquered planet of New Geneva, former Marine Sergeant Kyle Adams crouched in the ruins of a bombed building. With him were medic Linda White and demolitions expert Danny Murphy. They were part of the resistance movement, fighting against the Vorthok occupation. "The aliens are moving supplies through the main street every day at noon," Danny whispered. "If we can hit one of their convoys, we might slow them down." "What kind of supplies?" Kyle asked. "Food and equipment for their garrison." "Intelligence says they're having trouble getting enough supplies from their home worlds?" Kyle smiled grimly. The Vorthok were learning that occupying planets was harder than conquering them. "Linda, can you make sure the civilians stay clear of the area?" "Already done," Linda replied. "The word is spreading through the underground network." The next day, Kyle and his team set up their ambush. They had salvaged human weapons and some captured Vorthok equipment. It was not much, but it might be enough. At exactly noon, a Vorthok convoy came down the street. 3 alien vehicles moved slowly through the rubble. Vorthok soldiers walked alongside them, their weapons ready. "Wait for my signal," Kyle whispered into his radio. When the convoy reached the middle of the street, Kyle gave the order. Now, explosions erupted from hidden charges planted by Danny. The lead vehicle flipped over and crashed into a building. The other 2 vehicles stopped, and Vorthok soldiers began shooting in all directions. Kyle and his team opened fire from their hidden positions. The aliens were caught in a crossfire. Their advanced weapons were powerful, but they could not shoot. What they could not see. "Danny, take out the rear vehicle," Kyle shouted. Danny fired a rocket launcher at the last alien vehicle. The explosion killed several Vorthok soldiers and destroyed their supplies. The battle lasted only 5 minutes. When it was over, 15 Vorthok soldiers were dead, and 2 of their vehicles were destroyed. Kyle's team had lost only 1 fighter. Not bad for a day's work, Danny said, looking at the burning wreckage. This is just the beginning, Kyle replied. We're going to make them pay for every world they've taken. Similar attacks were happening. On other occupied worlds, the Vorthok had superior technology, but they were not prepared for human guerrilla warfare. Their soldiers were trained for formal battles, not for fighting an enemy that could be anywhere and strike without warning. War Prime Thelanox, the Vorthok military commander, received reports of the resistance attacks with growing frustration. His species had conquered many worlds, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity. How many soldiers have we lost to these resistance attacks? He asked his aide. 300 in the past week, War Prime. The humans are using tactics we have never encountered before, and the attack near Jupiter. We lost 3 ships to some kind of new human weapon. The humans sacrificed their own pilots to destroy our vessels. Elnox was troubled by this news. The Vorthok valued their own lives highly. They could not understand why humans would willingly die to achieve military objectives. Increase patrols on all occupied worlds, he ordered, and prepare for the final assault on Earth. We will end this war quickly. Back at Earth, Admiral Thompson prepared for the greatest battle in human history. The quantum disruptors were installed on 50 ships. Pilots had volunteered for what everyone knew were suicide missions. The Vorthok fleet will arrive in 2 hours, reported her tactical officer. We have 130 ships ready for combat. And they have over 200, Admiral Thompson replied. But we have something they don't understand.
What's that, ma'am?
The willingness to sacrifice everything for freedom. Our pilots know they're going to die, but they're flying anyway. That's something the Vorthok have never faced before. Human fleet moved into position around Earth. Fighters and frigates with quantum disruptors took the lead. Behind them came the main battle group with conventional weapons. All ships, this is Admiral Thompson, she said over the fleet communication system. Today we fight for our home world. Today we fight for our families. Today we fight for the future of humanity. It may have better ships and better weapons, but we have something they will never understand. We fight for each other. The Vorthok fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system. Their ships were massive and dark, bristling with weapons. They moved toward Earth with the confidence of a force that had never been defeated. But something was different this time. For the first time in the war, human ships were advancing to meet them instead of retreating. The quantum disruptors had given humanity a chance to fight back. The Battle of Earth was about to begin. It would be the largest space battle in human history, and its outcome would determine whether humanity survived or joined the 12 other species that the Vorthok had destroyed. Admiral Thompson looked at the approaching alien fleet and felt no fear. Humanity had found a way to fight back. The tide of war was about to turn. The Battle of Earth began at dawn. Admiral Grace Thompson watched from her flagship as 200 Vorthok ships approached the human defense line. The alien fleet moved in perfect formation, their dark hulls gleaming in the sunlight. All ships. Prepare for combat, Admiral Thompson ordered. Remember, we only get one chance at this. The human fleet was smaller but ready. Ships like the UES Retribution, commanded by Captain Steve Morrison, took positions alongside fighters carrying the new quantum disruptors. Every pilot knew this battle would decide humanity's fate. Vorthok ships are in weapons range, reported the tactical officer. They're beginning to fire. Green plasma beams lanced across space toward the human fleet. The first salvo struck several human ships, but this time, the humans did not retreat. Instead, they charged forward. All disruptor fighters, attack now, Admiral Thompson commanded. 50 small ships broke formation and accelerated toward the alien fleet. These pilots were volunteers who knew they would not survive the mission, but they also knew their sacrifice could save Earth. Major Alan Foster led the attack in his new fighter. He'd survived the battle near Jupiter and volunteered for this mission. Despite the odds, all fighters, remember your targets. We need to take down as many shields as possible. The Vorthok ships focused their fire on the approaching fighters. Plasma cannons erupted across the alien line. Human ships exploded, one after another, as they closed the distance. "Fighter Blue 7 is down," came a voice over the radio. "Blue 12 is hit, but still flying." Foster's fighter shook as a plasma beam passed close to his hull. Warning lights flashed on his control panel. "I'm hit, but still operational." Continuing. Attack. At 400 meters from the nearest Vorthok ship, Foster fired his quantum disruptor. The blue beam struck the alien vessel, and its shields collapsed instantly. "Target shields are down," Foster shouted. "Hit it now." The main human fleet opened fire with conventional weapons. Missiles and railgun rounds that had bounced harmlessly off Vorthok shields now struck bare whole. The alien ship exploded in a massive fireball. Across the battlefield, other disruptor fighters reached their targets. One by one, Vorthok shields failed. The alien ships that had seemed invincible were suddenly vulnerable, but the cost was terrible. Of the 50 fighters that began the attack, only 8 survived long enough to fire their disruptors. 42. Human pilots died to bring down 12 alien ships. War Prime Thelanox watched the battle from his command ship with growing alarm. For the first time, his ships were being destroyed by human weapons. The impossible was happening. "How are they? Breaking through our shields?" he demanded. "Unknown," War Prime replied as tactical officer. "The humans appear to have developed some kind of new weapon. Pull back the fleet. We need to study these new weapons before we attack again." Admiral Thompson was not going to let the aliens escape. "All ships, pursue the enemy. Don't let them regroup." The human fleet chased the retreating Vorthok ships across the solar system. Captain Morrison's ship, the Retribution, led the pursuit. His crew had been fighting the aliens for 8 months and wanted revenge for all the defeats they had suffered. "Captain, we're closing on a damaged Vorthok cruiser," reported his weapons officer. "Target their engines." "I want to capture that." "Ship intact," Morrison ordered. Dr. Peter Hayes had developed a new weapon that could disable alien ships without destroying them. Instead of explosions, it sent an electromagnetic pulse that shut down Vorthok computers and life support systems. "Firing pulse weapon," the weapons officer announced. A white beam struck the Vorthok cruiser. The alien ship's lights went out, and it stopped moving. Human Marines in spacesuits moved toward the disabled vessel. "This is the first Vorthok ship we've captured," Morrison said with satisfaction. "Let's see what secrets they're hiding." On the occupied world of New Geneva, Kyle Adams received news of the Earth battle over his hidden radio. The Resistance. Fighters gathered around him in an abandoned warehouse. "The humans won a major battle at Earth," Kyle announced. The Vorthok fleet was forced to retreat. Cheers erupted from the Resistance fighters. For the first time since the war began, humanity had achieved a real victory. "This changes everything," said medic Linda White. "If Earth can beat them, maybe we can drive them off our world too."
"The Vorthok garrison here has been getting nervous,"
added Danny Murphy. "They've been requesting more supplies and reinforcements."
Right, Kyle?
Looked at his fighters. They were tired and outnumbered, but they had hope for the first time in months. "Then let's give them something to really worry about. It's time to take back our world." The Resistance had been planning a major attack on the main Vorthok base for weeks. They had studied the alien patrol patterns and found weaknesses in their defenses. "The aliens change their guard shifts every 6 hours, Kyle explained, pointing to a map of the base. "For 10 minutes during each change, the north wall is only lightly defended." "That's not much time," Linda said. "It's enough if we move fast," Danny replied. "I can get us through their fence with shaped charges." "What about their weapons?" asked one of the fighters. "We've captured enough Vorthok equipment to arm 20 people," Kyle said.
"Oh,
"Their own weapons will work against them."
oh."
Resistance struck. Danny's explosives blew a hole in the base fence at exactly the right moment. Kyle led his fighters through the gap while the Vorthok guards were distracted. The aliens were not prepared for a direct assault on their base. Their sentries were looking outward for threats, not expecting an attack from inside their perimeter. "Take the communications building first," Kyle ordered. "Cut off their ability to call for help." The Resistance fighters moved through the base, like shadows. They had studied every building and knew exactly where to strike. Within minutes, they had captured the communication center and destroyed the alien equipment. "Weapons depot is secured," Danny reported over the radio. "We've got enough alien weapons here to arm 100 fighters." "Medical building is clear," Linda added. "The Vorthok were holding 30 human prisoners here. They're all alive." Kyle reached the command center where the alien base commander was trying to organize a defense. The Vorthok officer was shouting orders in his own language, but his soldiers were confused and frightened. "Surrender," Kyle called out in the few words of Vorthok language the resistance had learned. "Your base is taken." The alien commander raised his weapon, but Kyle was faster. A burst from a captured Vorthok rifle ended the alien's life. By dawn, the resistance controlled the entire base. They had captured enough weapons and equipment to arm every resistance fighter on the planet. More importantly, they had proven that humans could defeat the Vorthok in ground combat. "Send word to all the other resistance groups," Kyle ordered. "Tell them it's time to take back our world." Similar uprisings began on other occupied planets. The news of Earth's victory had spread throughout human space, inspiring resistance fighters everywhere. The Vorthok Empire was facing something it had never encountered before. The humans refused to stay defeated. Every time the aliens thought they had won, the humans found a new way to fight back. War Prime Thelanox received reports of uprisings on 6 different worlds. His occupation forces were under attack everywhere. For the first time in his military career, he was losing a war. "Supreme Commander Velthok demands a report," his aide announced. Thelanox dreaded this conversation. He would have to explain to his supreme leader how a primitive species had managed to turn the tide of the war. "Tell the Supreme Commander that the humans are more dangerous than we predicted," Thelanox said. "They've developed new weapons and new tactics. They fight with a determination we have never seen before." "What are your recommendations, War Prime?" "We need to consider negotiating a peace treaty," Thelanox said reluctantly. "The humans may be primitive, but they are too costly to completely destroy." But Supreme Commander Velthak would not accept such advice. The Vorthak Empire had never negotiated with the species they were trying to conquer. They had always either won completely or destroyed their enemies entirely. The war was far from over, but the tide had turned. Humanity had found ways to fight back against superior technology. The aliens who had started the war were beginning to understand that humans would never give up. Admiral Thompson looked at the tactical reports from across human space. Everywhere human forces were advancing. The quantum disruptors had given them the tools they needed to fight the Vorthok on equal terms. "Prepare the fleet for the next phase," she ordered. "It's time to take back our worlds." The defensive war was over. Now began the liberation of humanity's colonies. 1 year after the Battle of Earth, Admiral Grace Thompson stood on the bridge of her flagship as it approached the Maelstrom Nebula. Behind her followed the largest human fleet ever assembled. Ships that had once been purely human now carried captured Vorthok technology. The war had changed humanity into something stronger. "Admiral, we're detecting the alien defense grid," reported Captain Jake Sullivan. He had survived the first meeting with the Vorthok and now commanded the rebuilt U.S. Defiant. "It's massive. At least 200 defense platforms scattered throughout the nebula. And beyond that lies Vorthon, their homeworld," Admiral Thompson said. "The heart of their empire." The journey to this moment had taken months of careful planning. Human forces had liberated 12 worlds and captured dozens of Vorthok ships. Each victory taught them more about alien technology and tactics. "Captain Barnes, is your reconnaissance squadron ready?" Admiral Thompson asked. Captain Rachel Barnes nodded from her position at the communications station. She commanded a group of modified stealth fighters designed to slip through enemy defenses undetected. "We're ready, Admiral. My ships can map the defense grid and find weak points." "Good. The success of this mission depends on finding their command center. Without it, we can't disable their defenses." Captain Barnes and her squadron launched from the fleet and disappeared into the swirling gases of the nebula. The Maelstrom was a dangerous place even without alien defenses. The electromagnetic storms could disable ship systems and the dense gas clouds could hide entire fleets for 6 hours. Barnes and her pilots flew through the nebula, dodging defense platforms and mapping their positions. The Vorthok had built an impressive network of weapons, but they had made one mistake. They had never expected anyone to attack their home system. "Admiral, this is Barnes," came the message over long-range communications. We found it. The central command station is in the heart of the nebula, protected by 30 platforms and 2 cruisers. "Can you reach it?" Admiral Thompson asked. "Not from the outside. But if we can get ground forces onto the station, they might be able to disable it from within." Admiral Thompson looked at her tactical display. The mission would require precise timing and coordination between space and ground forces. "Major Foster, are your commandos ready for this?" Major Alan Foster had survived more battles than any other pilot in the fleet. His special operations team included the best fighters humanity had produced, including Kyle Adams, who had led the resistance on New Geneva, and Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, who had somehow survived the defense of Harrison's Point. "We're ready, Admiral," Foster replied. "Give us a way in, and we'll shut down their defenses." The plan was complex, but simple in its goal. While the main fleet engaged the outer defenses, Foster's team would infiltrate the command station and disable the entire grid. It was humanity's most ambitious military operation. "All ships, begin the attack," Admiral Thompson ordered. The human fleet moved into the nebula in 3 groups. The first group, led by Captain Morrison on the Retribution, engaged the outer defense platforms. The second group, commanded by Captain Sullivan, pushed toward the center. Third group stayed in reserve, ready to exploit any breakthrough. The battle in the nebula was unlike anything humanity had ever fought. The swirling gases created an environment where ships could appear and disappear without warning. Vorthok defense platforms fired blindly into the mist, often hitting their own forces. "Contact front," shouted Captain Morrison as his ship emerged. From a gas cloud directly in front of a Vorthok cruiser, "All weapons, fire." The Retribution and the alien ship exchanged fire at point-blank range. The human vessel had been upgraded with captured Vorthok shields, but the alien ship was larger and more heavily armed. "Hull breach on Deck 7, reported Morrison's damage control officer. "We're losing atmosphere. Stay in the fight," Morrison ordered. "Use the quantum disruptors." A blue beam lanced from the Retribution and struck the Vorthok ship. The alien shields failed, and human missiles tore into the exposed hull. The enemy cruiser exploded in a brilliant flash that lit up the entire nebula. Meanwhile, Major Foster and his commandos approached the central command station in a captured Vorthok transport. The alien ship's identification codes allowed them to pass through the inner defenses without being challenged. "Remember, we need to disable the grid controls, not destroy them," Foster told his team as they prepared to board the station. "We blow up the wrong thing, the defenses will lock down permanently." Kyle Adams checked his captured Vorthok rifle one more time. "How do we know which controls to hit?" "Dr. Hayes gave us detailed schematics," Foster replied. "The main computer core should be in the center of the station." The commandos docked with the station and entered through a maintenance airlock. The interior was dark and filled with the sound of alien machinery. Vorthok symbols covered the walls, but the humans had learned enough of the alien language to navigate. "Movement ahead," whispered Amy Rodriguez, who was scouting forward. 2 guards. Kyle and another commando moved around the guards and took them down silently. The team advanced deeper into the station, following the route Dr. Hayes had mapped. From captured Vorthok data, they reached the computer core without being detected. The room was enormous, filled with alien technology that hummed with power. In the center stood a massive computer that controlled the entire defense grid. "There it is," Foster said. "Dr. Hayes said we need to access the main terminal and input the shutdown codes." Kyle moved to the alien computer and began working with the interface. His hands shook slightly as he entered the complex sequence Dr. Hayes had taught him. One mistake could trigger the station's self-defense systems. "Guards coming," Amy reported from her position near the door. "Lots of them." "How long do you need?" Foster asked Kyle. 2 more minutes, Kyle replied, sweat beading on his forehead. "Hold them off," Foster ordered his team. The commandos took positions around the computer core as Vorthok soldiers poured into the room. The battle was fierce and close quarters. Human and alien weapons fired in all directions, filling the air with energy beams and explosions. "Got it?" Kyle shouted as the alien computer accepted the shutdown codes. Throughout the nebula, defense platforms began powering down one by one. "Admiral, the grid is offline," Foster reported over his radio. "You have a clear path to Vorthan." "Excellent. Work, Major. Get your team out of there." But escape would not be easy. More Vorthok soldiers were arriving every minute, and the station's self-defense systems had activated. The commandos fought their way back to their transport ship, losing 2 team members in the process. With the defense grid down, Admiral Thompson led the main fleet toward Vorthon. The alien homeworld was a massive planet covered in cities and industrial complexes. It was the heart of the Empire that had terrorized humanity for over a year. The final space battle took place in orbit above Vorthon. The last Vorthok fleet, commanded by War Prime Thelanox himself, made a desperate stand to protect their home world. "All ships engage the enemy," Admiral Thompson ordered. "This ends today." The battle was the largest of the war. Over 400 ships from both sides fought in the space around Vorthan. The humans used everything they had learned during the war. Quantum disruptors, captured alien technology, and innovative tactics, all combined in one final assault. Captain Sullivan's ship, the Defiant, engaged Thelanox's flagship directly. The 2 ships circled each other, trading devastating volleys of fire. "Their shields are down," reported Sullivan's weapons officer. "We have a clear shot at their bridge." "No," Sullivan said. "Target their engines." "I want to capture their commander." Alive, the Defiant's missiles struck the alien flagship's engine section. The massive ship lost power and began drifting helplessly in space. As the battle raged around Vorthan, War Prime Thelanox made a final desperate decision. Rather than surrender, he attempted to destroy Vorthan's major cities with orbital bombardment. If the Vorthok Empire was going to fall, he would make sure there was nothing left for the humans to capture. But Dr. Peter Hayes and his team, now working with captured Vorthok scientists, managed to prevent the genocide. They disabled the orbital weapons before Thelanox could use them. "War Prime, your fleet is defeated," Admiral Thompson said over the communication system. "Surrender now, and your people will be treated fairly." Thelanox looked around his damaged bridge. His fleet was destroyed, his homeworld was defenseless, and his empire was finished. For the first time in Vorthok history, they had been completely defeated by another species. "I surrender," he said finally. The war was over. The ceremony took place aboard the UES Defiant, the same ship that had carried the first human diplomats to meet the Vorthok. Supreme Commander Velthok, who had arrived from the outer regions of the Empire, signed the surrender documents. The Vorthok Empire agrees to pay reparations for the destruction caused during this war. Admiral Thompson read from the treaty. "All occupied human worlds will be returned immediately. A neutral zone will be established between human and Vorthok space." Jake Sullivan, now promoted to Admiral, watched the signing ceremony with satisfaction. The species that had demanded humanity's surrender was now surrendering to them,